Brilliant. Okay, thank you everybody, and good morning and welcome to our latest CPD Live. I'm really pleased to welcome Kate Silcock with us this morning, who will be covering our latest CPD session on recruiting, retraining and leading outstanding tutors. So Kate, over to you.
Hi, hope everyone's okay. I started great by just knocking a cup of tea over about 2 minutes before Sam jumped on a call, all over my table. So I've just dashed to print off some more notes. We've got, okay, so this is an hour session, I think. Is that right, Sam? Yeah. If people need to leave earlier, that's fine. If we finish earlier, that's also fine too. We'll just kind of see how it all goes. So what I thought I'd do is just introduce myself a little bit, tell you about Flourish tutoring and kind of how that's evolved, and then go through obviously the recruiting, retaining and leading a group of outstanding tutors and how that's enabled me to scale my business. So I started as an English teacher. My background is a secondary English teacher, and I've worked in education for 20 years. Worked as an English teacher in a secondary school for 13 years, and then done some tutoring alongside that, dipping in and out as and when it suited. And then in 2020, just before lockdown, I decided to kind of leave my full-time teaching profession. I had 2 small children under the age of 3, and I was head of a key stage, and it was all too much. So much to my husband's horror, I decided I'm just going to leave. I'm going to go for this. I'm going to set it up, and I'm going to make it work. So it literally started with me having 2 one-to-one students who would come round to the house at my kitchen table, and that is literally how it started. Just two students, and it kind of grew authentically. For the first year, it was just very, very authentic. And then I started to think about, actually, this is something that I really, really want to build, really, really want to grow. And then we've now got 420 students, an alternative provision with 55 students and 3 sites and 51 teachers all in all. So it's gone from something that was just me solely, to a really successful tutoring company, really, that is a business on its own without me. And I think that's something that I had to make a decision about 12 months in, is that this business now I need to take away from the business being me, Kate Silcock, the tutor, to becoming Flourish the tutor. And I work for the tutoring company, and I worked very, very hard in creating a company that my values underpin the whole company, so that parents were happy with any other teachers as well, not just me. Because you always find that kind of, to begin with, that transition, people seem to want you to teach their child, so that transition is quite difficult, but that's something we managed to do quite successfully with a lot of hard work. So that's a little bit about me and my background. And then what I thought we'd do is kind of just go on to the recruiting side of it. So if anyone's got any questions at any point, Sam, if you just tell me to just stop a minute or shut up a minute, and then they can ask the question and then I can answer. You don't need to wait to the end if it's something that you want to ask, before I move on. So how do we recruit? So basically, when we first started, for me, it was, I own a tutoring and wellbeing company. So Flourish is all about the wellbeing as well as the tutoring. So we ran sessions on resilience, confidence growth mindset, confidence building, all of those kind of things that we found really, really, just really important to me. That was one of the reasons I left working in a school setting, is because I didn't like that feel of the exam factory that it had become. Kids come in, train them for an exam, sit the exam and leave. And there was a lot of kind of just not very personalised learning happening, a lot of overlooking confidence, a lot of overlooking issues that was so very obvious with these groups of 30 children in a class. So from day one with Flourish, I always ran wellbeing sessions alongside everything that I did. And so the values of that, I wanted to make sure when I took on my very first tutor, that they understood that. and there were some that didn't, and so there were some that didn't continue with us, because that is at the core of everything we do, is the student well-being. Student comes first, their well-being comes first, everything else will follow. If we haven't got that well-being right, if the child's not in the right headspace, it's very hard for them to learn. So when we are recruiting, the first thing we do is just kind of, I suppose we've created a company where people want to work with us. It's a lot easier to recruit teachers now than it was 4 years ago when I first started, because we've created a company where people want to leave their full-time education job to come and work with us. They've seen what I've done, they've seen what our team do, they've seen the team members being able to drop the kids off at school and pick the kids up off at school and still earn enough money to, to live a nice life. So I think that's something that has been really, really important in terms of letting people see your business, letting people see the type of leader you are and the type of team that you've created. And I suppose having a company that consistent communication. I'm very, very open with all of our teachers. They don't feel that there's a me and them. We're a team. I'm very kind of on the ground as much as I can be. There's so much opportunities to grow and develop. So any of our kind of team members that come to us, we're constantly telling them about the opportunities at Flourish, the opportunities for training, any funding that we can access to kind of get them through other types of training. They feel valued, recognised. This is a sector where I would argue the majority of educators feel quite deflated within a school setting, and they feel quite overlooked, they feel quite overwhelmed, and they feel quite unhappy. So for me, having these amazing teachers who work with Flourish to feel recognised and valued, and that they're adding something to this young person's life, is so, so, so important. And that is something, I think my passion comes across to the whole of our team. That is something that is super, super important. That they have that sense of purpose, that they know what they're doing each week and they can see that impact that they're making. You don't always get that in a school. And I think most people go into teaching because they love learning, they love education, and they love making a positive impact on young people. And sometimes working in a school full time just kind of beats it out of you a little bit. We are super flexible and understanding. We're very positive, and we have a very respectful team culture as well. So we are all about kind of empowering each other, and not having that. I think unless you've worked in education, unless you've worked in a school setting, I remember my husband used to be really shocked when I'd come home and tell him things that had happened, because it's quite a competitive place to work in a school. But I don't really feel like that's seen from the outside unless you're kind of in it. It can be quite a competitive, lonely kind of dog eat dog kind of world. So we've created an education company where it's really about empowering. There's so many opportunities, and I'm really quite proud of that. So when we are recruiting, we have a flexi working approach, because a lot of our teachers still work in schools. So we have primary teachers, we have secondary teachers, and we have SEND teachers who work in special provision, or they work for the LA. So we have educators currently in schools, we have full-time teachers and leadership who work with Flourish. And then I hate the word bank, but we kind of have like a bank of teachers as well, who will dip in and out. So maybe for exam season, they'll say, right, Kate, exam season's coming up. Do you have any hours? Do you need any help? And they're really useful as well for when people are on holiday, or they have parents' evening or information evening. They'll kind of dip in and out as well. We recruit, obviously, like I'll go on to the kind of the compliance side in a second. But when we are recruiting, I'm trying to think back to when I first started. So when we were recruiting, we would use social media. We would use any of the school partnerships that we had developed, because we delivered a lot of wellbeing programs into schools as well. Word of mouth was so the WhatsApp group that I'm in as a mum, I know lots of teachers in here. If anyone's looking for additional hours, please send it, your CV, covering letter, etc., to the email, because that's so powerful, having that word of mouth. That's geographically in that location. When I'm talking about face to face, that's really, really important, really powerful to be able to kind of articulate that. Social media is massive, as you know. So social media adverts, I never paid for anything on social media for the first few years, ever, because I didn't feel like you needed to. I feel like I knew the audience, and funding was really tight, you know, when you're first starting off. So I was very careful where I spent my money in those first kind of 2 years. But that's kind of who we recruit, the teachers who might be working in a school. They might be they may be thinking about going back after maternity and they want to reduce their hours and they're looking to top their income up. It might be retired teachers who are retired, but oh my God, like are just too good to be retired and not to teach. I just think these incredible. We've got Rick, one of our teachers, who's actually one of our site coordinators. He retired and he came to me for 1 hour a week. And I actually knew of him because I tutored his daughter years and years ago. And he came for 1 hour a week. And he's just incredible. He's like the oracle. He just knows everything. And I was just like, oh my God, I need you with Flourish doing more. And now he works full time. He teaches an RAP. He manages one of the sites. And he jokes all the time. It's like, I only came for an hour. I only came for an hour to get away from my wife for an hour. And I'm like back working full time. But it's because it just shows us like there's so much opportunity. And also it's so different than working in a school setting. You know, I feel like people, the way to kind of to help with your recruitment is to sell that aspect of it, is that you're still getting to do what you love without all the other nonsense, you know, without all of that other like picking boxes and jumping through hoops, and we're getting to make positive impact on children's lives without all of that kind of negativity that kind of weighs us teachers down, if that makes sense. So that's kind of who we recruit and how we would recruit. If you want to flick to the next slide. So obviously this is all about kind of recruitment, retention, and making sure that we are, you know, quality assessing everything that we do. In terms of our safer recruitment process, I am a bit of an obsessive person with this. I think the key thing for me is you cannot be too cautious with when you are building a team of teachers, especially when you are building a team of teachers, because I mean everyone's in different situations. So for some of our tutors we might be recruiting locally, so some of our tutors we might be recruiting online, so they might be applying from different parts of the country. So I think somebody's just asked that question actually. So yeah, we would do both. So initially for me, it's about obviously having the right checks in place, which we all know kind of DBSs. So this is kind of, I did a little flow chart here for you as kind of like the basis, if you like, of what we do. We would send over a letter via email, you know, kind of, it doesn't have to be war and peace. It's about who they are, what they can offer, what their experiences is, what, you know, the qualifications are, and then from that letter they're invited for an informal chat, whether that's face to face or obviously online for those people who aren't geographically close to us. That informal chat to me is, along obviously with the safeguarding checks, is the most important bit. So we will have formal interviews, but for me it's the informal chat that I find way more useful as a business owner, as an employer, because I am somebody who in interviews, I used to just fall to pieces. I couldn't even remember my own name. I was just somebody whose nerves would get the better of me. I would forget to say all the best bits about me. Whereas an informal chat, you come in, you have a cup of tea, you have a biscuit, and you can see if that person is suited to your company. You can tell by the way they talk about young people. You can tell by the body language. You can tell by the questions that they ask. You can tell what their strengths are when they're asking questions. I'm trying to think of an example, but for example, small group. So when you have small group tutoring, how is what's the behaviour like? To me, that's telling me that you might be somebody who feels a little bit unsure about managing different personalities in a group. So it's things that you can learn and pull from these informal chats that you might miss in a formal interview. So they come in for an informal chat. That's as much for me about saying to them, as well as us seeing if this is something that we would like you to be a part of, this is your opportunity to see how you feel about Flourish as well, because unless you are somebody who is very passionate about student wellbeing and student progress and kindness and building confidence, we're not the right company for you. If you are somebody who just wants to come in and teach kids, you know, right and wrong, there are lots of tutoring companies that can do that for you. We offer something way more personal and emotional, and that's really, really important. So for them, it's an opportunity to see if this is something that they want to do as well as much as it is for us. Following all of that, you know, we would talk about different kinds of pay, different rates, expectations, and then we would invite them in for the interview. And then in that kind of formal interview, you've already got those initial relationship there because you've spoken, you know, you've already seen them, you've already met them, you've had that chat with them. Alongside this, we would obviously be talking about the DBS. So are they on the update service? Can you send a copy of all your ID, your right to work, all of that kind of stuff over, so that when they do come for interview and hopefully it's amazing and you're like, yeah, these are brilliant, let's go, everything is underway already. Now we do our own DBS checks, we do our own applications, so we want to see everyone's certificate, and then we also want them on the update service as well, because as you know, and yet some of you might not know, but the minute after that certificate is issued, it's out of date, because that was then, you know, and 5 minutes later something could have happened, something could have been disclosed, something could have come out. So that update service is a way of checking. There was a lot of conversation in one of the WhatsApp groups the other night about this. For us, if a teacher comes across from a school, so let me see, Sam, you work at a local school, you say, here's a copy of my certificate, it's from 2022, because schools aren't the best at updating the certificates, and a lot of schools still aren't on the update service. We say, okay, let me see a copy of your certificate, you're working in a school, I've got your reference, so I know everything is okay, otherwise the school would have been informed. But then I'm relying on the school's quality assurance and their safeguarding checks. I can't afford to take that risk with our students, because parents are trusting us with their students. So people say to me all the time, oh my God, okay, that's too obsessive, like they're literally working in a school. And I say, there's just no such thing as being too cautious. The school HR manager could be on maternity, she could have a replacement who's not as on it with her job. We have to be responsible. Any child who comes through our doors, we have to be responsible with who we're putting in front of them. And so that's just the way I like to do it. The teachers pay the initial DBS fee, and then if they we will pay for that. If they leave within a term, then they will pay us that money back. So it's an investment in terms of a teacher. Although recently, now that we've just taken on another 20 teachers, we are it's starting to come off their first pay, and then if they leave, we'll reimburse them. And then the update service is £16 a year, so it's really a very small thing for teachers to have to pay for. So that's the biggest thing I would stress about that is don't let your quality assurance and your safer recruitment alter depending on who it is who's applying for the job. It's such and such's sister. Oh, I knew him, I used to work in that school with him, he was great. Okay, well, that's all very well and good, but we have a duty of care. And I think if you start to alter that a little bit, I think that's when things slip through the net and issues can arise. Somebody asked me a question there, sorry. Was it in the chat?
Yeah, in the chat. So Rebecca has asked, do you make a conditional offer of employment before the DBS check?
Yes, so we will say to them, we want you to be part of the team, subject to DBS checks. But once after the informal chat, as a company, I mean, this might not work for everyone, but as a company, we have kind of 80% sure of this person, whether or not they can work for us, and then the interview is almost the formality side of it. So yes, we would start doing that kind of stuff in the background. The majority of people who are applying for tutoring jobs though are usually have an active DBS, but I know the update service, you can literally just go on and log on and check, so they're transferable in that sense. But the actual paper copy, really, any new employer should be able to have a physical certificate in front of them, whether or not it's it's a waste of money. Because for some of them it is, a money making. Chat with everyone. Some of our self-employed or employed, both, a mix. We have both. A lot of the tutors who still work in schools, the self-employed route for them works better for lots of different reasons. So it depends where you are as a company. You know, it would, I suppose there's lots of different opinions on this, but my opinion is in the first instance, when you're building your company and you're trying to establish your brand and growth and finances, it's much better to have teachers who are self-employed, because it's less expensive for your business initially, if that makes sense. So while you're still trying to grow and you're still trying to think about like sites and rent and overheads and insurance and everything else, that's something that it's just a little bit cleaner to begin with. And then obviously it depends on where you are as a company as to how quickly you want to make that move over. And I think if you can offer both, I think that's quite an incentive for people, because some people might necessarily not want to be employed. Because if you've got a brilliant teacher, like for example, we've got our GCSE maths coordinator, and he is absolutely incredible. Now he works full time as a head of maths in a school, and so he doesn't want to be employed by me, because there's lots of different reasons: tax reasons, time reasons, accountability reasons, all of these different things. Whereas as a self-employed, we have an SLA together to say that he needs to do this, this and this. This is what he'll get paid for this and this, and any additional work will be, rated at this pay. That works brilliantly for us too. But then somebody else who wants to come and work with us, but they want to leave their teaching job, might want something a bit more secure. So it might be better for us to be able to offer them something that is a bit more kind of secure, if that makes sense. On average, how much time does the recruitment process take? Is that right? Is that what that question is? I couldn't see all of it.
On average, how much time does the recruitment process take? Do you have a dedicated team for recruitment alone?
Okay, so from the initial message, whether that be on social media or a phone call or an email, within 2 to 3 weeks. Obviously, then we're waiting for the DBS, and that depends on how long that DBS comes through. But I am very keen to get things going quick. I don't wait around. I like things to be done pretty quick. In terms of a team, up until 6 months ago, I know this sounds crazy, and I don't know if you believe me or not, but this is 100% true. Up until 6 months ago, I did the majority of everything, which got to the point where I was like, I can't do all of this anymore. This is just, the only thing I stopped doing was physically teaching, because up until last year I was still teaching as well. So because I wanted to ensure, because I was so scared of, like, I remember the first time I wasn't on when I originally got my first site, the first day that I wasn't there when we had sessions running, I was like a nervous wreck. And I was texting them all the time, is everything okay? Have you made sure, like, the safeguard checks are done? You make sure, because you have like an entrance and an exit policy with the kids to make sure the handovers, completely safe and everything. And I was a wreck. I was like, oh my God, like, what if something happens and I'm not there? And I had to really work on that for myself, because I knew in my head what I wanted to create, and I knew I wouldn't be able to do that unless I got past that kind of initial letting somebody else take responsibility for it. I don't feel like I just answered that question. What was that question? Sorry. Oh, a team. So up until, so like I say, more recently, we've got an HR, communications and administrative assistant who help me now with all of the DBS checks, compliance. We have something called a central service register. I don't know if you guys have them in York, because I know different LAs are different, but because we have an alternative provision, we have to kind of keep records of everyone who works with Flourish, with all of their checks on, all of the qualifications on and everything. That's so helpful, because everything is on one database, everything's on one Excel sheet. It doesn't have to be a big posh database that you've got to buy in. It can be an Excel sheet, as long as you can access it there. So that is something that I've now that we've got obviously really, really busy, that's something that I've needed some help with, if that makes sense. Let me just check the chat, sorry. Become a tangent, but the Scottish PVG system no longer issues paper copies as standard and charges a subject £17. Have you processed Scotland-based applicants now to in practice? Hi, Rebecca, we haven't actually, sorry, we haven't had anyone taken anyone on from Scotland as yet. In that situation, I suppose you just have to make sure you are compliant under their kind of umbrella. So if that's the kind of the legality surrounding that, you just have to do two separate things. So one might need a paper copy, whereas those guys, obviously, they don't issue them anymore. It is a very dated approach. I think that having the physical certificate, in my opinion, if you can apply online and you can check it daily, that is far more efficient and a much better way of safeguarding than having a paper copy anyway. But yeah, sorry, no, we haven't yet. But I think, like just what I said, just following those protocols would be the best way forward with that. As part of safer recruitment, do you also obtain 2 written references, overseas check, eligibility score in UK? Yes, all of that. So yeah, so that kind of service central register, that's where we keep everything. We haven't had anyone overseas work for us as yet, but the written references, yes, they come along in the interview process, sorry, with the paperwork. That was all of those questions. So that's that would kind of be how we ensure we are compliant. I think the key thing for me, the most important thing for me, is making sure that the people we have getting the right people in front of the right students, and that's a combination of the policy, yes, of course, the safeguard, and all of those kind of like black and white bits, if you like, that that you have to make sure that you're doing. But equally as important as that is making sure you've got the right character in front of the right kind of young people as well, in front of the right students. We rather than just, we've been in situations where it's like, as a business owner, we've got a cohort of students waiting, and we need to put teachers with those students, and you don't want to lose those students, but you can't afford to make any shortcuts when it comes to kind of like the compliance side of it, and the DBS. What we try and do now is we're very proactive in saying, get on the update service, because if you're on that update service, I can check straight away that you've had all the necessary checks for safeguarding, in terms of an enhanced criminal, any disclosures, anything like that, the right to work with children, all of that stuff I can see. So while we might be waiting for an application of a paper copy, I can see if they're okay to be on our site with another teacher present and teaching. That's always a way that you can do it as well, like they would in a school. In a lot of schools, while they're waiting, they'll bring them on and there'll be another teacher in the same room as well, as like another kind of layer of safeguarding. If that's okay, is that okay? Any questions before we move on to the next slide? What did your growth look like, the middle steps between 2 students in your kitchen, 500 students? Stress is what it looked like. No, I'm joking. It looked like this. It looked like, tell me if I'm going off on a tangent from the, maybe I should do another one on growth or something, but so it started with the kids at the kitchen table, and then it started with me getting a site. So fast forward a few months, I think I was doing about 12 students a week, and I was like, you know what, I feel like group tuition is more lucrative, obviously, because your time. And a lot of the kids I was teaching 1-to-1, I was repeating myself. I found myself doing GCSE question 3 and then doing it again the hour after, and then doing it again the hour after. So for me, it was getting a site. It was getting a premises that was within. For me, the first step was finding a premises that, if it all went wrong, which, you don't want to be negative, but you've got to be realistic about these things as well. If it all went wrong and I only continued with 12 kids, would I still be able to pay the rent and the insurance and everything? And it wouldn't be a detrimental effect to me and our household and our financial situation at the time. Bearing in mind, I've gone from 50 grand job, full-time pension, holidays, to nothing, and I felt like I needed to be able to say to my husband, for the sake of our marriage, if it doesn't work, this will be okay. I will still be able to pay this, and this. So it started with one site, and it started with me taking on 2 tutors, self-employed. So we were offering, I was advertising, just using social media, no pay or anything, like no sponsored ads, nothing like that. I found a site, I haggled a little bit on the price with that, and then I renovated it. Now, for complete transparency, the renovation of each site that I've done has cost about £10,000 for each site. However, that's because I found sites in a location that I really wanted, but were quite run down, so I was able to haggle a little bit on the prices. I can do another talk on this in terms of making sure you get like your 2-year break clauses and all things like that to kind of protect you a little bit. But that's kind of on average what each site has cost. So got the first site, went hell for leather on that. The answer was yes, always. Do you do this? Yes. And I remember Ben, one of the first teachers that I took on, he was like, "Kate, we haven't got a science teacher." And I was like, "We'll find a science teacher." The answer is yes. We don't say no, because if you say no, they go somewhere else, obviously. And when you're trying to build your business, you can't afford for that to happen. So So it started like that, then we got more students, and we'd get more teachers, and then obviously your reputation starts to grow. I was very good at, as soon as a child had been with us for like a half term, can you leave us a review please on Google? Can you, trying to kind of build this kind of presence. Let me just see. How did you recruit your students and teach in person? I'll answer those two in a second. Just let me finish this one, otherwise my ADHD brain will go off on one. So it went from, so then I was in one site. Then as soon as I got that one site, it was like I was addicted. I was like, right, this is working and this is going really, really well. And I want to replicate what I've done here. I want to rinse and repeat what I've done in this geographical area. I want another site, in 15 minutes away or 20 minutes away in a different area. I looked at local primary schools and local secondary schools, and I looked where there was a lot of kind of children that we were targeting in that age range in terms of locations. So that was key. That was a key thing. And then got a second site. So I was at the first site for about 18 months. And I think I had about I had about 75 students at that point. Then I found my second site. And I went for that. So at that point, I had Ben, who I actually nominated him for an award because he allowed me to go and renovate this site while looking after that one. If that makes, I'm not letting the standards slip on that one because of the systems and things I put in place. It was just kind of like following it. But so then I got my second site, renovated that. But at the same time as finding that second site, I drove past another site in another area and it'd gone up for rent. And everyone, I know, my husband was like, you're going to give me a heart attack. But I'd driven past it and I rang up about it, and the deal was just amazing. I mean, I feel like I've got PTSD from that renovation because it was horrendous. But it was there and I was like, I just need to go for this. This is a massive opportunity. So I kind of literally just opened one and then found another one. I'd say I wouldn't advise it, I would. Just do it. But that was really hard because I was trying to build in one area while renovating another area, and we weren't fully established in that area yet. So that was very tricky. But again, recruiting more teachers, that's when I pulled in Rick, and he kind of saved my life with that. So it's all about the team. That I suppose growth looked like one site, 70 kids, two sites, we went to like 200 kids, three sites, we're on 400 students now. Obviously that will differs and everything, but underpinning all of that is my team. There is no way I could have done what I've done without my brilliant team of teachers. And the reason that they're brilliant is because they feel valued and they feel respected and they feel listened to, and they're able to, to be honest and be transparent about things, and that they work for somebody who doesn't think they know everything. I don't know everything about business. I don't know everything about education. So I am always open to what they think, to their suggestions. And I think that's so important when somebody feels listened to. It's a game changer because they're willing to do whatever because they know they're valued. If that makes sense. Does that answer your question, Barney? Yeah. How do you advertise for free on social media? I would just do it like a post. So I would just do at the time I was using Canva when it first started. Oh my God. And you know what, when I think back, I'd spend ages on like a border, like ages getting the right colour or getting the right, because I made sure all my branding matched. But I would just do it like a post. So I would just post it, I would tag people, I would say please share. I probably did everyone's head in on my own personal Facebook because I was constantly sharing things. LinkedIn as well. I mean, I'm still not as active on LinkedIn as I should be. I get told off all the time by the team. But joining groups, if it's local groups, if it's more kind of groups that are further away, share everything in there. We're looking for teachers. Do you want to be part of a really innovative tutoring company? Here's what our teachers say about working for our company. Just being clever really about the resources you already have, because I think sometimes when you're setting up or you're wanting to grow, there's a tendency to think you've got to spend a lot of money. And while that's great if you've got it, my God, it would have been lovely for me to have been able to pay for Google ads and get my SEO right up there, but I just couldn't afford it. I didn't take a wage for the first 2 years. I hardly took a proper wage. I would take what I could, what I really needed to help pay my mortgage and stuff like that. And I remember saying, because I did, obviously I'm like payroll, so I remember paying people, and I remember saying to my husband, I wish I worked for Flourish. I didn't know it because I'd be paying them sometimes 3 times what I was getting, but that's because I was building something. So it was my sacrifice to make kind of thing. How do you recruit your students, and do you just do in person? No, we do online as well. So again, social media. We've worked closely with a lot of local schools because, like I say, we did wellbeing sessions. We offered like we'd go in and do kind of confidence building sessions on SAT. So we'd say, this is how approach to the exam. A lot of them were free. A lot of them I was just doing to try and get our name out there. The Flourish Wellbeing aspect of the business, that was more kind of emotional regulation and resilience. So they were 6-week programs, but we would get to know some of the parents and schools that way. Offering kind of complimentary service, not all the time, because I hate this, because people want everything for nothing, and at the end of the day, like, that we are, you know, experienced, educated people who spend a lot of time and a lot of investment in our own careers. You shouldn't be giving your stuff away for free, and people will take advantage of that. But the odd one every now and again, if you're using it as a marketing strategy, then I think that is okay. How do you recruit your students? Yeah, so basically, just social media was massive for me. It was a lot of our emails coming in were saying, we've seen your post on Facebook, we've seen your post on Instagram, my friends shared this with me, that kind of thing. What sort of groups did you join as an individual, as a company? Gosh, yeah, social media is can be quite tricky, can't it? Because sometimes people don't let you join if you're a tutoring company, which I just find mind-blowing. So it was just an individual. So if you are somebody who's thinking about setting up in your local area, face-to-face, your local groups, your community groups, your parent groups, your school PTA groups, anything at all, just join them all. We've got one called Wirral Free Cycling, which is like basically people put stuff on to give away for it. I think I got banned from that one, actually, because I was posting stuff in there. But I think just anything you can kind of just get it out there to as many groups as you can, and they'll tell you, if you know, you can just always say, sorry, this isn't allowed, and they'll always tell you. Is Flourish just for tutors with QTS? Yes, it is. Qualified teachers. However, I say yes, it is qualified teachers, but we have had some higher level teaching assistants who work with us as well, because they're just absolutely phenomenal, and it's circumstances that they're not a teacher, if that makes sense. But they will be doing, so for example, it'll be somebody who's trained in phonics, and they would be teaching just the phonics program. If that answers your question, Rebecca. I think that's everything. So how do we keep the team and grow it? So it's, I suppose I'm repeating myself a little bit, but what I said before about the mindset, the Flourish mindset, and our kind of ethos, it's like one of our team, Trish, she is our operations manager now for the AP, but she says all the time, are they flourishy? That's like her saying. She said, like, but are they flourishy? So it's almost like, are they, and I suppose what that means is, do they fit in with our values? You know, are they the kind of person that way? We once had somebody come for an informal chat, and she said, do you get a lot of students from, and she mentioned an area which is quite a deprived area, quite a disadvantaged area, and a lot of the students who you work with in that area can be quite challenging. And she said, oh, you don't get a lot of students from that area, do you? And that's how she said it to me. And so straight away I was like, you're not for us. Just because of her mindset and that kind of judgy element that she had. So we value the time and the worth. You know, we say all the time we get the best teachers because we pay the best rates in our local. I know that's different all over the country, but in our local area, what our local tutoring providers pay, we pay more. Flexibility, times, days, holidays. We understand that they're doing multi-roles. You know, one of the hardest things as a business owner of a tutoring company for me is, for the majority of our people, this isn't their priority. So if the majority of our people, I was saying this earlier to Sam, but the majority of our people have jobs full time. So we're not their top priority. So trying to create an organisation where they respect us enough to give us ample notice, to ensure their sessions are covered, to make sure the feedback is going to the parents weekly, even when it's a crisis time for them in their school, and their kind of number one job, if you like, is really important. And I think they respect the business that I've created and grown because they've seen how much work I've put into it. They've seen how the sacrifices that I've made. And so they understand that they can't just, ringing in sick, if you like, has a massive impact on us, more so than it probably would in ringing in school. But that all comes down to those values and making people feel part of something really exciting and making them feel really valued, because that's so important, like so important. And the professional development opportunities, a lot of our teachers who work with us have gone through I've put them through the youth mental health first aid training. I've put them through the paediatric first aid training. They've done drawing and talking therapy, some of them. They've done emotional regulation training. So any opportunities that are out there, because there's a lot of opportunities where you can kind of access for free training for your teams. They love that, because these are some teachers who've never been offered that in school and they've been there 15 years, so those kind of things, creating a workplace where you want to do above and beyond for your team, because without your team, you're a sole tutor. How did you manage crossing VAT thresholds of paying to operate? Hard, Tim. That's been the hardest thing, really, is going through VAT. So we went through VAT last year, was it? Maybe the end of the year before, and I was really scared, like really scared. I had a whole conversation about, do we just cap it now? Do we just stop? And this is when I was leaving the first site. Actually, we were about to go through it with the first site, and I thought, I'm always going to have to be here, and I don't just want to be here because I want to grow and grow and grow and grow. So I'm just going to have to bite the bullet, be brave, and just go through it. I think making sure your prices reflect are fair. So if you worked for a motor trade, for example, and you were buying a lot of parts, it's easier to say to your customers, we're VAT registered, we have to pay for a lot of parts, therefore there's going to be VAT added onto your invoice. It's very hard to do that for parents, because there's a cap really on what parents, the majority of parents, I know everyone's in different situations, would pay. It's very hard to say, right, it's £35 an hour or whatever plus VAT. So you have to kind of tie that into your pricing. But I think increasing your prices is something that you would have to do if you want to remain a viable business, because you're paying 20%, so you're losing 20%. So I think adding that in, and transparency without talking about your finances to all of your parent community and all of your team. But, we're all living in the same world. We all know how expensive things are. Utility bills, one of our utility bills a few weeks ago was £400 a week. That's just like absolute, like crazy. So, definitely you probably will have to increase your prices a little bit if you go through the VAT. And if you haven't and you found a way of doing that, please let me know. Because it's hard. Do the parents pay the same rate for your tutors when you first put into, where the parents paying the same for them and for you? How do you take a team when they've been recommended especially for you? So my answer to that would be, we pay up, yeah. So it wasn't like you pay more for me and less for somebody else. And for me, it's not about paying more to somebody than to somebody else. But I know that's controversial, because I know some people believe that A-level tutors, for example, get paid more than Key Stage 1 tutors. I get that, and I completely understand that. It's about people's time. If you're a Key Stage 1 teacher and you're leaving your two little kids at home and missing bedtime, and you're an A-level teacher and you're missing your two little kids' bedtime at home, who's to say what's more important and what's more valued in that situation? So I think if we try and our rates try and reflect all of that, and we kind of like meet in the middle almost. The other thing is as well, is when you're joining a tutoring company, you're not just getting the 1 hour work. So we always say, I feel like this is going off, sorry Sam, of what I'm here to talk about, I'm so sorry, but I think if they're asking me questions, it's still useful, isn't it? Is when they come to us, if they're delivering face-to-face or online, I'll try and do sessions back-to-back for them. So in one evening, they might be able to earn like £150 or £200 as opposed to just that 1 hour. So I think the hourly rate, while it might be less than what they might go and do on their own, over the period of the month, it works out way more. So that kind of works quite well, that strategy as well. When the parents pay, how did I convince them? That was really hard at first. So my little cohort of kids that I had, my kind of 12 kids when I was just doing it from home, when I got a site, I stuck with them. What I tried to do was not move anyone over, but place, when new people came in, I would place them straight away with a new teacher. And if they said, "Oh, aren't you teaching that group?" I would say no, but Susie is, and Susie is, or Sarah is, but Sarah worked with me at this school for such amount of years, and she's got this knowledge, and really teacher profiles on your website, or teacher profiles sending out to parents, come in and meet the teacher, all of that kind of stuff I think works really well, because there's teachers within Flourish who are incredible teachers. Do you know what I mean? I'm not the best teacher in Flourish. But parents will think that if I set up the company. There will be people who are more knowledgeable than me in A-level maths or A-level English. Maybe not A-level English because I'm an English teacher, but you know what I mean. So I think that's kind of important. It's all about how you reassure them, and was it the same price for you and for them. In terms of tutoring, yes. So the parents would pay this amount of money per kid, and I would get that amount of money per hour, and so would the teacher. Now I don't teach anymore, but yeah, because I think if you charge the parents, if I think, right, you know, I'm the owner and my time's more important than somebody else's. So parents, you're going to pay me whatever, £50 an hour, but you can go to Sam and pay 30. That's telling Sam that my time is more valuable than theirs. So I think you've got to be really careful when you're growing a team, that everyone feels on a level playing field. I think that's really important. Sorry, Sam, I know I do chat, you know, I love to chat. Okay, so that's kind of how we keep our team and grow it. Next one. Go, next one. We are nearly there. So you've done your informal chat, you've done your interview, all the checks have been made, and you're now part of Team Flourish. So you get a welcome pack, and within that is a welcome letter, the tutor agreement or the SLA, the code of conduct, your duties, job description, etc. Your timetable, schedule expectations, although that timetable will change half term to half term because it's flexible with exams and stuff. Your registration form, emergency contacts, and then curriculum guidance and assessment. So we will have, I will bring people in and do training sessions for like English GCSE paper 1 with teachers, just like top-ups for them, if you like, in different ways of teaching, to check that the standard of the teaching is like the same across the board. They get a policy pack with everything in, and they have to sign and acknowledge that they've seen all of those policies. That's more about protecting yourself, really, as well. Health and safety, equality, diversity, etc. Attendance, expectations, dress code. We have uniforms, so everyone who is on site wears a black Flourish tutoring t-shirt or a black Flourish tutoring hoodie. We have lanyards that everyone has to wear with the teacher's name on. Visitors, as soon as a visitor comes on site, they have to sign in and have a red lanyard on. The same way it would happen as in a school. The GDPR acknowledgements, safeguarding policies, obviously, complaints and disciplinary procedures, and they're being added to constantly. You know, well, it's just death by policy, isn't it? There's new policies for everything. We have an entrance and exit policy, so and the teacher takes, this is when you've got more kids or more teachers, but a teacher takes them down, make sure somebody stays on the door while the door's open for safety. You know, we've had a lot of horror stories and horrific incidents happen this year that you may or may not be aware of, but we have to make sure that we know who we're letting in and out of the buildings because of that. So that is all of the welcome pack. Okay, got through that slide quick, I think. And then the next one, training progression. So you're with us, you've done everything, you've started your sessions. Before you start your session, you'll have an introduction. So it'll be literally just like, welcome to the team, chat. We'll do what we started doing now. At the beginning, it was all face-to-face for me. Now that we have so many teachers joining us, I'll do like a Google Teams meeting so they can access it from wherever. If they're working on a site, it's site-specific induction. So we'll kind of say where, this is where the fire exits are, fire extinguishers, all that kind of stuff, health and safety, pat-on kind of thing. Any CPD opportunities through both the LA and external providers, they're always given the opportunity to engage and support. And like I said before, supporting is something that I'm so passionate about growth. Like all of these, a lot of our teachers who've come to us, the confidence has been very low. They feel like school is just beating the love of learning, the love of teaching out of them. And for me, it's about empowering them that, oh my God, like you can do whatever you want to do. Like that qualification, that knowledge is yours. Let's build you up. Let's get you confident. Let's get you this qualification, that qualification. That kind of thing. And I think that's why our teachers tend not to leave. We've got 51 teachers now. Only one of the teachers who've joined us since the very beginning has gone, and that's because she's just taken on a head of governor's role, so capacity wise for her. It's a nice place, it's a nice community to work for. They're all fully trained in our systems, expectations, core objectives. There's quality assurance for that, so we have a site coordinator. We also have a lead teacher on site per evening. So everyone knows who that lead teacher is. So they are responsible for any potential safeguarding issues, health and safety, locking up of the property, that kind of thing. Because that's been really, really useful, because obviously as soon as I opened another site, I can't be in two places at once. So I needed to make sure that I had robust systems in place that would be followed. And obviously I quality assure them by going around and kind of doing those checks. But again, not in a Ofsted, I'm the boss, here I am, what are you up to kind of way, but in a really supportive way. Can we help? How's this going? How are you finding, you know, the entrance and exit drop off pick up? Can we make it easier? All of that. If you've got enough equipment, all of that kind of stuff. That I do. Think that is it. And the opportunity is open to all. Yeah. So whatever opportunity we've got, it's open to all, regardless of how long you've been with us. So for example, we're recruiting for a new operations manager in the next couple of weeks. That's going to go out to all, and anyone can apply for that, both who are in school at the minute and who are with us full time. And I think that was my last slide. I think. Is it? Yeah. Yeah, my last slide. Any questions? Are we all okay? Anyone got any questions or anything you want to check about anything? You know, also, obviously, please feel free to get in touch, you know, separately if there's anything that you would like to ask but you didn't want to ask on this call, or something that isn't really to do with the recruiting and retaining. Please let me know.
Perfect. Okay, in that case, thank you so much, Kate, for your time this morning. Thank you everybody for coming as well. I will be processing the recording and sending you all your link to your certificates in due course. Hopefully by the end of this week. I'll try and do it as quickly as possible. But yeah, otherwise, if you're watching the recording, for anybody who does sign up to any of our CPD Live series and attends the session live, you can get one CPD credit and certificate for it as well. But yeah, otherwise, thank you so much, Kate. It's been really, really useful. I'm sure everyone will agree as well. And have a good day, everybody.
Have a good day, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.